Welcome back to Dog and Garage, and today I'm going to show you the basics on using a paint gun.
Back from the dead.
So this is our paint gun we're going to be using. It's a DeVilbiss FLG4. This particular model is a 670. The basic adjustments that you'll be using here is, of course, you'll be using your air. So back here, you can see the knob. This you just adjust by turning it one way to cut it back, or turn it the other way to add air pressure. With this particular gun, they recommend starting it at 23 psi. So I'm in the area there, and then we adjust it later once we start doing a few test sprays before actually painting. And then you see these two knobs up top. This knob here is to adjust the fluid. Right now I've got it wide open. That's the way I like to start, and then start cutting it back when we're doing our test. Then you can twist it the other way and it'll tighten it in. That'll start giving it less fluid through the gun. You don't want too much, because then you'll end up with orange peel, or it'll start dripping, or if you got too little, you're just not spraying enough and putting enough, product onto the whatever you're painting. This other knob up top here, that's your fan. I like to keep mine wide open, so I'm covering more area at a time. You can tighten it down, and it's going to tighten the amount that you're spraying out. I keep mine wide open, but that's another thing you can adjust depending on what exactly you're using this for. So, the other thing you can notice here is this red thing I've got on the back. This is a disposable filter or dryer, whatever you want to call it. It helps keep the debris from getting into your gun from your air compressor and the hoses and everything. This is the disposable one. This is just temporary. I don't like the setup because I don't think this particular kind works real well, but it's better than nothing. I don't have an air dryer or filter mounted on my wall for my air compressor yet, so this will just have to do for the time being. And also, before we get painting, I'm going to purge the air out of my compressor to get as much moisture out of the tank as possible, because you don't want moisture going through your paint and everything. So that's what this is. A lot of times when somebody's painting, you don't see this because they usually got one on the wall, a really nice one that works well. So that's what we have there. This is what you put the paint in. And simple. Got your lid here. Just opens right like that. You'll be pouring your paint in there. You got your cap here, so you can see the hole in there. There's a hole here. That's so that you got your air that can go through there, basically, so that your paint will properly flow through. And it helps because then you don't have anything splashing up. In the bottom here is your filter. It just pops into the bottom, filters your paint before it goes through the gun. That will basically just go in the top up here and just screws in. And you just pop that in hand tight. That's it. Then on the gun, you can see right here, obviously your needle goes through from the fluid adjuster through here. Basically goes through your gun like this. And then we'll come through the tip, and then up here is where it meets the air, and it just all combines, and the air will atomize the paint, and that's how you get your spray going. Pull this about halfway back, and that's when your air starts to go. and you can feel a little resistance once you get about halfway, and then the paint starts to go. So at first it's just air, then it's paint. First time I ever used it, I didn't realize that, so I was wondering, why is my paint not coming out? Because I wasn't pulling it all the way back like I needed to. So that's the basic setup of this so far. So let's take a look at the rest of the stuff we've got here. So I want to touch base on a couple more things here before we get spraying. You can see here it's reading past 100. I've got compressed air on now, and that's the amount of pressure in the tank. And when you pull the trigger, it goes back to about 20. That's because that's the amount that this regulator is allowing to go through the gun at this point. So basically, what you'll do is you'll pull this trigger at the same time you'll be turning the knob, so that you'll know the amount of pressure that you have going through this gun. I'm not going to adjust it just because it's about where I want. Usually I want a little bit more, but we'll adjust it a little bit once we get the material in flowing through it. That way we can see what kind of spray pattern we're getting. The other thing, as you can see in the end here, these two pieces that stick out a little further, you want them side by side like that. You don't want them up and down. You can see in the sides of them, you got 2 holes there, 2 holes there. That's where your compressed air is coming out of. That's what causes it to make a pattern kind of like that, where it fans out real nice up and down. Now if you had these two, instead of side by side, you had them up and down, it would fan out sideways. That's not what you want. So if you got it like this, you got it right. And in the middle there is where your paint will come through. So if you need to adjust this, turn this silver ring here and it'll loosen it so that you can rotate this piece. Then once you got it where you want it, tighten it back up. I'll show you a little more on detail on how breaking this down is and everything once we go to clean it, but I'm sure you get the idea at this point. So let's go ahead and look at what we're going to be mixing. Okay, so these are what we'll be using today. We're going to be using an epoxy primer. Then we're going to have to use the catalyst over here, which is basically the activator that we need to mix with it. It's basically like a hardener. And then in the back here is a reducer. Now this is a fast reducer, so the reason I use that is it's a little colder this time of year. So its temperature range is 50 to 65 degrees. So we'll be using that one too. So on the back, it gives all the information. Here you can see the mix ratio at the top. Very important. 4 parts of the primer, 1 part of the activator. And I'll show you on this mixing cup how you do that. And then it says below that, optional reducer, 5%, 10%. That's also on the mixing cup. We'll look at that. It's got your sanding information. It shows right there the 320 grit. That's exactly what I used. Wet coat applications, 1 to 2. I did 2 the last time. I'll probably do 2 again. Flash time, 10 to 15 minutes between coats. Also, that would be about 10 to 15 minutes once you mix it together in this mixing cup as well, to let everything kind of sit and, you know, get working together, I guess you'd say. Let's see here, dry time. It's got the dry times down there and all the information. Then more sanding after the fact. So we're going to go ahead and start mixing all this together. So here's the mixing cup we'll be using. You can see here it's got ounces here. I'm only using a small cup because I'm not going to go through a lot. 1-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. I'm looking for the 4-to-1 because that's what this calls for. So you can see here, for example, if you were mixing, I don't know, say the amount you're looking for is 2. Your primer you would fill up to, it's kind of hard to see because of the glare, I'm sorry. But you can see the primer you would fill up to about 2, right there, this first row. And then when you're doing your activator, you always put your primer first, and then your activator you would fill up to the next number 2. And then from there, if you wanted to, which I recommend it, is when you put your reducer in, that'll be this third row, this number 2. So you can kind of get the idea. If you're doing the small amount like 1, then you'd have your primer, activator, reducer, you know, just, it's got the measurements done there for you. It's pretty simple. Then you'll mix it all together. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to start pouring this stuff in. So I hit an issue when I was pouring the primer into the mixing cup. It was actually a little bit thicker than the last time. I don't know if I didn't seal the lid real well or what's going on. So I lost the footage of that, and we've got the activator in there now and the reducer. I actually added a little bit more reducer and then mixed it all up. So right now we're letting it sit 10 to 15 minutes, letting all the chemicals and everything do their stuff. And then we'll be pouring it up here. You can see I got the filter here. You definitely want to use one of these just in case there's any contaminants in your paint. So while we're waiting for the chemicals and everything to do their little reactions and whatnot, I'm going to go ahead and put a fan over here in the door, open the door, get a little bit better ventilation going on. It's not a paint booth, you know, it just goes to show anybody can do this. So we do the best we can. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and we're going to do some test sprays. sorry that when I'm painting and stuff, I can't really explain what's going on. The air compressor is kicking on, having a respirator on, and I'm gonna see if maybe I can figure out how to do a voiceover, so that would help. But one of the things as far as the movement of when you're painting, going down along the panel, for example, you want to make sure that I try to stay about 8 inches away from the panel, and kind of just pan side to side, and don't be waving it like a wand. Just pan side to side, try to stay the same distance away the whole time, and make sure you're getting in those little grooves and stuff like that. There's going to be some mistakes you're going to make here and there. No big deal. God knows I make plenty of mistakes myself. One of the problems another problem I'm having now is I've got fluid or primer leaking out of the tip. So I don't know if I possibly reduced it a bit too much, or maybe one of the seals in there isn't right or something. So, but there's always going to be an issue here or there. So this next one's going to be a time lapse of the second coat, and part of that I got to get up underneath and touch up a little spots that didn't really hit real well yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and get this part done too. So we just get done priming. Now it's time to clean up. So what I recommend doing is getting your paint gun cleaner. If you don't have any, I recommend going and getting some. I've used carburetor cleaner in the past. It works pretty good. So what you'll do is you'll get your paint gun cleaner, pour it into the hopper, and then with the compressed air, go outside and spray the fluid through your paint gun system. What that'll do is that'll flush out your system as much as possible before you start taking everything apart. You don't need to fill the whole thing up, obviously. Just put, a small amount in there, enough to kind of flush it through. And then when you're done doing that, disconnect the air hose. Now, mine's already cleaned up. I did that just so it's not getting all messy all over the place while I'm, handling the camera or, messing with anything like that. And what you'll do is you'll take your hopper off. It just twists off. Remove the filter. It just pulls out, which I've already got mine out. It was very crowded up, so it just pulls straight out, if that's the kind of filter you've got. And when cleaning the hopper, what I like to do is set this on top of one of your jars, if you've got mason jars or whatever, or if you've got a bucket filled with solution, throw it in there, and then you can let everything soak in there. But what I did was I sprayed the fluid down in here so it would kind of rinse it down into the mason jar. Now, and then scrubbed it out and whatnot. Next, what you can do is you've got your fluid adjustment right here. You'll turn that all the way wide open until it comes out. You just pull this off, set that aside. Normally you won't have to clean that. Pull the spring out, and then you'll see the end of this needle here poking out. Pull the trigger so it pops it out a little bit more. That way you can pull it straight out. And you'll just grab a hold of that. It's in there pretty tight. And you'll pull that straight out of the back. And this is basically what runs straight through your gun. So this, I recommend soaking in your paint gun cleaner. But like I said, this one's already cleaned up. So you'll let that soak in the paint gun cleaner. I'll set that over there to get it out of the way. And then next, you'll get this ring that I've talked about earlier in the video, and you'll twist this and it'll come loose. And then you can see it frees this up as well. So just keep spinning this. And you can actually take both off at the same time. You know, it just pops right out. These are two separate pieces here. This is the tip. This is the ring that holds it on. You can put both of these in your fluid as well to soak. This you don't really have to unless it gets all messy. This I recommend doing it because, you know, this is what your compressed air comes through. And you don't want those ports getting clogged up with your paint or anything. And then the next piece in here would be this tip right here. Actually sits right behind this piece. So this piece, actually, I've got it loose right now, but it'll take one of these, and this size is a 1/2 inch. Mine takes 1/2 inch. Different paint guns may take different sizes. I'm not real sure. You just put that over the top of it like that. Twist it, loosen it up, spin this right on out. It just threads on. It just comes out like that. This is what your paint goes through. So you want to let this soak as well. And then on this particular gun, this piece just slides right off just like that. Now, this one I have not seen any gaskets inside there. I've seen on some videos where some other guns have a gasket there. You want to remove that. You don't want to lose it. So we'll set that aside as well. And inside the top here is a gasket where the hopper plugs down into there. You want to make sure that's all nice and clean. And the whole passageway that goes all the way down and out the front here, there's another ring inside here where the tip threads in there, and it'll seat against that. You can pull that out if you need to when you're cleaning. I recommend doing it so you can see, if there's any gunk around behind there. But theoretically, it shouldn't be dirty behind that ring because it's supposed to seal it off anyways. But you can take your whole gun unit and put it in with the rest of this to soak as well, or spray it out. I recommend when you're actually cleaning these to use a brush, not necessarily a microfiber cloth, because you can get the lint inside here and could cause problems next time you're painting. But like I said, do what you got to do. If this is all you got, go for it. But I do recommend using a brush. So this is it disassembled enough to where you can get a good cleaning job done on it. Now I'm hearing where you don't have to do this every time. You should clean it every time, but you don't have to disassemble it like this every time. I do, just to be on the safe side. But that's basically how you do it. Now as far as putting it back together, what we'll do is get this piece here, slides right over the top like that. And then we'll get your tip. And you can see it just threads right on like that. Get your wrench here. You don't want to get it too tight, but just snug it up a good bit. And then I like to install these at the same time, so I just kind of drop that ring, or this inside the ring, then install them at the same time. And that just threads on the end there. But you want to make sure, keep it loose till you can get this oriented the way you want it. That way these are side by side and not up and down. So you'll do that, snug it up. So it should look like this. And then you'll get your needle. Make sure you get the right side. Sharper end goes in first. Goes right in the back. You can see where it goes right through. I think I might need to oil mine a little bit. And it slides all the way in, all the way down through there. And then you'll get your spring, you'll slide over the needle. Then you'll get your adjustment cap, and it goes over the spring, and you just thread that on there. Now you don't need to crank it all the way down. You can, just as long as it's on there, because that's your adjustment. Then I'm pretty sure the hopper's self-explanatory. I just put it on the top. I only do mine hand tight. Now I did not put my filter back in because this filter's all crowded up and dirty. So then you pop your lid back on. That's it. Now you can let it sit out and dry with all the pieces disassembled, or you can put it back together. So I wanted to wait till the next day to show you the panel. That way it'd dry a little bit more. You can see it turned out really nice. Real smooth. No orange peel. No runs. Which is really good considering we had a few issues. Pouring the primer into the mixing cup came out really thick. So we just added a little bit more reducer. And that thinned it out real nice. Then the paint gun tip was leaking quite a bit at first. So we tightened it up just a little bit more. And I'm guessing that was what the issue was, because it quit leaking. But we overcame those problems and got some really nice results. And like I've said before, you don't need a paint booth, anything fancy, expensive. We got tarps hanging. I don't have all the professional equipment. So just goes to show anybody can do this. If you're willing to learn, put in the time to get the experience. Your first time might not be perfect, but just keep at it. Don't give up, and you can get the results that you're looking for. If you have any questions, just send me a comment. I'd be glad to get back to you as soon as I can. If you like the video, just smash that subscribe button, and we'll keep as many episodes coming as we can. Thank you for watching.